According to a new survey of more than 2,000 accounting, finance, audit, and sustainability practitioners, 88% of respondents say they've seen increases in return on investment from using artificial intelligence in the last year.
But only about 1/3 have AI governance in place, high-quality data, and role-specific training on AI.
In this episode, we're asking why that matters.
And what leaders can do about it.
Welcome to the pre-read. Just like the slides you get before a big meeting, the pre-read prepares you, CFOs and other executives, for the next big thing. It's the global podcast where finance, sustainability, audit, and risk come together in the C-suite.
If you're making decisions at scale or need to understand the leaders who are and what they're thinking about, you're in the right place. This is the pre-read, and it's brought to you by Workiva. I'm Steve Soder, accounting enthusiast and Diet Coke aficionado.
And I'm Melissa Zucker, sustainability nerd and equal opportunist caffeine addict. 3 takeaways from this episode. First, AI impacts are real. And second, despite that, AI maturity is lacking. And last, it's the C-suite that needs to set the foundation to close that gap.
And to explore this a little more, we're joined by guest co-host and intrepid asker of questions, Catherine Tsai. Catherine, could you please introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Catherine. I used to be a reporter, but now I'm a content producer at Workiva.
Now, Workiva recently published a Global Practitioner Survey report. Can you tell us a little bit about it?
Sure. Workiva is a software company that serves finance, audit, risk, and sustainability professionals. And every year we survey that audience on hot topics. This year we surveyed 2,300 practitioners in North America, Latin America, APAC, and EMEA. We asked them about what they thought the top threats were to their business. We asked them a little bit about sustainability. And you can find those survey results at workiva.com/PR-building value. But what the survey really got into this year was artificial intelligence.
Yeah, Catherine, what stood out to me is that while most of the respondents are seeing a return on investment from AI, an actually pretty big number, only about 1/3, as I said in the intro, have policies, data quality, and training in place to support it. You look at a technology that's as transformational and impactful as AI, but then you think about those other stats, it's actually a little scary.
Yeah, I mean, when you say a lot, Steve, it was like 88% of respondents in the report are noting an increased ROI from AI over the last year. And so it almost feels to me like there's now this data point that there's, the business case for using AI for that transformational potential is kind of getting legs. Companies are figuring out how to really make use of it in a valuable way. And so now that that kind of proof point is there, I would think when we do this survey next year, perhaps we'll see the shift in companies really starting to invest in those governance policies and practices.
Yeah, and I was really interested to hear what people in the Office of the CFO think about the survey results, but also what people on the IT side think.
Well, I think we were all wondering what they are thinking. And on that note, we can actually dig in with those 2 key personas and talk about the takeaways. So Catherine and I had a chance to sit down with 2 experts from Workiva, our Chief Accounting Officer, Junko Swain, and Chief Information Officer, Kim Huffman. And with that, let's get to our discussion with Junko and Kim.
Welcome, Junko, and welcome, Kim.
Hello for having us.
Well, right off the bat, where does your mind go when you hear those statistics from that survey?
Definitely, I can relate to the survey result because, first of all, it's encouraging to hear that 88% of the practitioners are actually seeing the ROI from AI. So that tells me that AI is not just a buzz, but it's a reality, right? So at the Workiva, even within my own team, I can't think of a day that we don't mention AI. But now I just wanted to say, I know there are fear in accounting professional that AI will eventually take over their job. But I put it in this way. If you can learn and work with AI, you're going to continue to have a job. But if you can keep up the, AI, definitely you may find yourself out of the job one day. My concern is that AI is being adopted much faster than a guardrail and then governance are being built. So in other words, organizations are moving too fast on adoption by lagging on the fundamentals such as governance, security, especially role-related training. Like when I think of finance, we really need to have finance-driven AI training.
Kim, what are your thoughts?
I would add that I think in spite of formal programs that companies have in place, AI is delivering results. In conversations with other executives and some of our customers, many organizations are seeing ROI primarily in sort of some of the productivity improvements, whether that's gathering knowledge, doing additional research, helping with deep research, creating content, helping check emails, et cetera. That said, I think, generally in the space, what we're seeing is that deep, long-lasting, and transformational results require more formal programs, governance, data, and role-specific training. Unlocking the value sort of that is trapped cross-functionally across business processes and directed at true cross-functional outcomes or business outcomes, I think will be where the true business value will be realized longer term.
Well, Kim, I love how you said the value is trapped. It's like, hey, help me get out. like, please, I want to get out and get it into the business. So I love the way that you phrase that. Junko, I want to follow up on a question about high quality data. Junko, you've got kind of a pretty big remit when you think about sustainability. Our sustainability controller reports into you. Of course, you've got audit and financial reporting and accounting that all report to you. So within such a broad context, how would you define high quality data, especially when you think about high quality data being subject to powerful tools like AI?
Yeah, so definitely, I think, first of all, high quality data is extremely important for finance professional, not only at the Workiva, but anyone who runs a finance organization. So to me, high quality data means data that is accurate, complete, consistent, relevant, and valid for its purpose, right? So it's not one fit on for all. I often go back to SEC guideline on materiality, whether reasonable investor can rely on this information to make the right decision. So even in sustainability, we do have a double materiality that we need to think through both aspects. So this means that it doesn't have to be precise down to penny, but it must be reliable and then accurate. And then also one more important point for high quality data is something like trusted, traceable, and auditable. So it's not only for financial audit, but also sustainability side, because typically like a finance professional are really used to have audit, so they know concept of the accurate high quality data. But we are still learning like a data quality for sustainability because one, many of the systems used for sustainability data that will be disclosed does not even have the same level of the control like ERP, right? So when you think of system that produce sustainability related data doesn't have a period close concept and a lot of data moving targets. So this, data governance become important more than ever.
Well, Kim, is there a role that AI itself can play in helping to achieve that vision of high quality data?
Absolutely. I think a strong data strategy and governance is the foundation for achieving significant results in business outcomes. And what we have actually begun to do is use AI to help identify and uncover data governance and some of the data quality gaps that Junko mentioned can be detrimental to some of the use of AI. For instance, in the case of knowledge use cases, many times the AI itself is helpful in uncovering content data inconsistencies and content asset gaps that we have that we were not aware of. But when we overlay a knowledge agent on top of that data, we find that the results that we see is a result of having inconsistent data or two versions of the truth. And we're actually able to use AI to help us uncover some of those data gaps. So it's been a surprising and welcome addition to our AI and our data quality initiatives.
That's pretty cool.
88% of global professionals say AI is already driving ROI. But here's the catch. Only 1/3 have the data quality to use it well. In Workiva's latest Global Practitioner Survey, 2,300 finance, audit, and sustainability pros shared how they're building value with AI amid uncertainty, with faster outputs, fewer manual tasks, and more strategic focus. You'll see what's working, where gaps remain, and how data integrity separates the leaders from those lagging behind. Read the full report at workiva.com/PR-building value. That's WORKIVA.com/PR-building value.
I wanted to shift to another one of the survey findings, which was about role-specific training. And to me, a lot of people are already experimenting with AI in their personal lives, if not at work. And so, Junko, why do you think it's so important to have role-specific training?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, finance is highly regulated, and then we need to go through the audit. And then I think my team does use AI, but mainly for content generation. But once we start to using AI for more complex problem to solve, definitely AI that we're going to design is going to be more complex, right? And then that's part of the reason why we really need to have certain, for example, my team, I would love to have finance focused training so that, any AI that we're going to use, it's going to be audit ready.
I really appreciate that comment about audit readiness. I mean, what better way is there to to think about what the ultimate objective ought to be, particularly for these practitioners? Kim, according to the survey, and Catherine alluded to this, just 1/3 of practitioners have access to role-specific training. You've heard me say this before. I would be aghast at launching technology as transformational and important as AI, where only 1/3 had done role-specific training. And I know you've talked a lot about this. I happen to be on your naughty list of people at Workiva who have not yet completed my AI training. I will confess that to this audience. But what do you think's going on there? Why do you think that is posing such a big challenge for companies?
I think there's a couple aspects to it, Steve. I think, first and foremost, I think when we say AI, it has a lot of different connotations and different possibilities across the large employee base and, people in general. I think AI has been around for many years in a predictive state, AI and ML. I think with ChatGPT, we then moved into the advent of generative AI, and we are now moving in, we've matured that into an agentic AI kind of a phase of the wave. And so when we say, are you using AI, I think it's a broad question. And do you understand and are you aware about how AI works is a broad question. And when you think about an organization implementing an AI initiative, there's a lot of ways for employees to take advantage of it. I think the first thing that you want to be thoughtful about when you develop and deploy an AI program is just give the organization general literacy. Just make them aware of the different types of AI, make them aware of the data privacy and the risks associated with AI, help them understand what it means to utilize AI, and then also how to ask questions of it. This is a new technology, and it's important that you will get as much value from AI and from the technology as you are able to ask questions of that technology. So there's a general baseline learning that I think is important across all organizations. And then when we start talking about role-specific training, we start talking about where are there opportunities within your function to take advantage of AI, to do your work differently so that you're able to focus more on higher value activities. And I think when we start talking about that, there's an element to an organizational change that needs to take place around what does the job role look like for someone in sustainability or someone in accounting. redesigning that. And so, when we talk about where organizations are, it's redesigning jobs and reskilling the people in those jobs to do their jobs with this new technology, and then redeploying them to do that work. And that's the organizational change and organizational readiness component that I think many organizations are now realizing is going to be critical for what I called that long, durable, true value realization aspect of this technology.
I would imagine that when employees are empowered and enabled to start to see those real benefits, I would assume then that some of the hesitancy around this new technology goes away because they really approach it opportunistically to say, this is actually going to make me a better professional. Is that what you've started to see, Junko, with your teams?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. As I said, I think a lot of accountant, finance professionals are scared of losing the job, but it is a must to learn AI, and you need to live with it, right? Because if you don't learn AI, the way AI is evolved, probably you're going to be still really quickly. Definitely, I have seen the change in my organization too. People are trying to use AI, and it's someone who master, baseline, like Kim said, content creation or, some access to AI. And once they master baseline, now they start to looking for more complex problem that they can solve by using AI. But it takes certain practice, and then as Kim said, we really need to make sure that we feed the right data, ask the right question. So it's continuous kind of evolvement. And then interesting part is someone like me who has been around for a long time, when it comes down to AI, I'm still starting line with someone who just graduated from college, and then often they know way more than I do, and then I need to go ask them, hey, do you know how to use this? So it's an interesting journey that all of us are going through.
Just to add on to the role-specific training, I think what we're seeing in across technology play out is that there are opportunities to use AI that's embedded in business applications, right? And there's been a real value in organizations that have been able to take advantage of that, because when we talk about AI applied directly within the business process to solve problems with the individuals and those end users that are working in their function, that has been a faster time to value as far as realization of that value. But the other thing that's important in that scenario is, speaking from a technologist and security perspective, is that data resides in that application. It's the knowledge that it's secure in that application. It's the knowledge that it's not going to leave that application and be sent to a model. And specifically, when I think about Junko and her team and what they're working on as far as financials, accountability, audit, those are aspects that are going to be very important when we start thinking about using AI in an organization, because we want to make sure that those core mission critical business functions are surrounded by secure, auditable, we know what's going on, and we're making sure that the data is residing where those functional end users are.
From our perspective, it's not only using AI, it's not only data, but also we really need to demonstrate how AI model was designed, developed, and implemented in a financial reporting process. So there's one more thing that we need to prove out instead of just simply using and then feeding the information to AI. We need to make sure that we can demonstrate that to pass, audit, not only financial audit, but also sustainability reporting audit as well too.
Well, it's such an interesting perspective, and candidly, it's one that I've only recently come to appreciate, is this difference between big, generic, kind of off-the-shelf, widely available, AI tools versus the specialized ones. And I mean, again, that may feel like a nuance now, but it's actually a really important one when it comes to value realization. And I think that's a really important thing for CEOs, boards, and certainly, C-suite executives like yourselves to really be thinking about, is like, okay, which tool are we going to use, and what do we expect the benefit to be? And you're probably going to get that faster, more quickly if you're looking at something more specialized. On that big picture note, Kim, as we get ready to wrap here, just would love for you to kind of share your perspectives on what the CEO and the board should be doing to set a foundation for their AI strategy as they start to navigate these fairly complex issues that can be really impactful in their organizations.
I think first and foremost, the initiatives around AI need to be driven by the executive level, whether that's the CEO with what is our North Star for our organization and how we're going to take advantage, how we're going to use AI, how we're going to approach it. And then AI truly is a team sport. It's not a technology, it's an organizational change, right? This is a different way people are going to work. They're going to be performing their jobs. It involves training, it involves change management, it involves communication. So it's going to need to be a thoughtful program that focuses on people, processes, and technology, starting with that AI literacy and then expanding into how are we thinking about, to your point, Steve, do we use a model or do we look at embedded tech capabilities within the application portfolio that we already have? Or do we do a combination? Is it a hybrid approach? And I think one of the things that, the last couple of years has taught us is that this area moves faster than any other technology wave that we've been in. And so the ability for an organization to think about a program that is responsive and iterative and agile is very important, because you might land on a solution to solve problem A 1 month, and then we find that there's new tech or new capabilities that come out 6 months later, and we've got to pivot. And so I think the ability to think about business outcomes versus technology solutions is important. I also think that as part of the use case iteration and evaluation, it's important to have a very quick assessment cycle between value hypothesis and value realization, because there's a lot of great ideas that we harvest from everyone in the organization that's excited about this new technology. Some of them have a higher value realization than others. And so we want to make sure we're putting our efforts towards those first, and having a quick assessment process. And then last but not least, governance, right? I think governance is critical to have, which is truly a cross-functional effort across your technology, your people and culture organization, and your security and data privacy teams.
Well, it's interesting when you talk about that, you go through that list. It's like the change management aspect of a traditional process. It gets slower, right? You implement, you adopt things kind of steady state. But with AI, it actually continues to accelerate and will probably accelerate faster and faster. That's a whole different paradigm. Just so fascinating. Well, Kim Huffman, Junko Swain, terrific discussion. Thank you so much for joining us. Really, really beneficial. Appreciate you both.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you again to our guests, Junko Swain and Kim Huffman. And thanks to our guest co-host, Catherine Tsai.
We'd also like to thank you, our listeners, for joining us on the pre-read, brought to you by Workiva, the world's only unified platform for financial reporting, sustainability, audit, and risk.
We've got more insights and hot takes coming your way. So be sure to follow or subscribe on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you get your edge.
And if you like the show, leave a review, send it to someone you love, or just shout it out in your next team call. We'll be back soon. And until then, go lead it like you mean it.